neighborhood beautification. That's very important to Detroit. It's very important to block clubs, organizations, and people who live in the community. We got started with 2 lots and a vision of a treehouse center. Because if we can take these blighted lots, Detroit give us grants to be able to do something with them that the community wants, it's a plus because we're bringing our neighborhoods back to where we want them to be, where they should be, all because I live in Detroit.
This is Alyssa Slotkin, Democrat running for the U.S. Senate. I want to share a story about who, more than anyone, taught me the importance of listening and accountability. It was President Barack Obama. I served in the White House on his national security staff. I got to see him in action, up close, and behind closed doors in the Oval Office. First, he was brilliant, and therefore demanded people really knew their stuff. It was President Obama who grilled me on issues and demanded accountability on what we said and did. That commitment to accountability is exactly the approach I use today, listening to our communities. It's why I've written an opportunity agenda with detailed plans to strengthen Black businesses, increase Black wealth, and provide real opportunities for our youth. Because, as President Obama taught me, you better say what you mean and mean what you say. So that's why I approve this message.
All right.
All right. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Week That Was. My name is Saeed Khan, and yes, it has been another very momentous week. In case anybody's tuning in from Florida, Georgia, Kentucky, or anywhere else, please stay safe. Please stay off the roads as Helene comes through. But for the rest of us up here in Michigan, awaiting eagerly all you climate refugees, we're doing very well. Thank you very much.
Very nice day out there. Yeah.
Nicely stated.
Yes.
Well, we are joined today by President of BME Consulting and former Director of Wayne County Public Services Department, Beverly Watts, pollster Ed Sarpolus, 2 of the lawyerly troika, Joel Sklar and Bill Seikaly, labor and community activist Barb Ingalls, veteran journalist Nancy Derringer, and of course, co-founder of Deadline Detroit, Allan Lengel. Well, Detroit is no longer the largest metropolitan area to have a mayor indicted on corruption charges. It's like the Big Apple decided to, I don't know, is it N block or C block us with that too, with the indictment of Eric Adams on a host of corruption charges. He has very valiantly and stridently said he is not stepping down, and he is leaving it to his lawyers to go ahead and argue his innocence, as he said in his latest press conference. So how big a deal is this? Because they've even involved my beloved Turkish Airlines, saying that he was getting freebie trips on this. What do I have to do to get the same perk? Actually become mayor of New York?
A friend of mine yesterday was who used to live in New York City was going through the indictment. He's on a group chat with another person, and he said this is like Kwame but way stupider, because I mean these communications between his staff and the Turkish embassy or whoever he was dealing with that were arranging all of this luxury travel and everything it's like it's too much money for him to fly first class, but you know, what was it, something like quote me a price to fly to Istanbul. Somebody said, and they said $50, and they said, oh no, that's not enough, it has to be something more realistic. And so and then the Turkish official comes back and says, what does he care? He's not going to pay for it. And his name isn't even going to be on the ticket. I mean, it was just like, I want to do a crime. Well, I'm going to help you do a crime. Let me explain explicitly how the crime is going to work. I mean,
just like, imagine flying through Paris to Istanbul via Buenos Aires, then on to Paris.
Right.
Hey, Ed, don't knock it unless you've flown. If you get to turn left when you board Turkish Airlines, you'll do the same, because they fly with their own onboard chef.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, yeah.
$50? Let me off one.
I want that travel agent for me.
Sign me up. And get you guys. trip.
Actually, Beverly, next month I got to fly to San Francisco, so I think I'll do Detroit, Istanbul, San Francisco.
That's the plan. That's the plan. Okay. And I was going to say, speaking of the former mayor, I heard his message this morning online, and he came out in support of the New York mayor because he said he can relate because this is a conspiracy from the Democrats.
Of course.
Where did he say that?
To deliver that message.
Where did he say that?
It's on I'll give you the podcast, but it's on a podcast.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I'll give you the name of it. I don't want to advertise on here, but I'll tell you because that was the first thing that popped up this morning.
Yeah. I'd like to write about that.
And he's saying it's a conspiracy theory, and he can relate, and he supports the mayor of New York, and this is a conspiracy from the Democrats.
Yeah, he gets another.
I agree with what good does it do to be a mayor of a major city in the United States if you can't take a couple bribes? It's got to.
But Bill, I don't think Billie Eilish had that in mind when she wrote her song "Birds of a Feather." Yeah.
Well, there's a meme that goes around periodically on the internet. It's a line from I think it's Modern Family, where the mother says something like, "Oh, come on, Bob, it's one banana. What could it cost? $10?" Which, of course, because she's rich and utterly out of touch, like Donald Trump, and someone's like, "It's a flight to Istanbul. What could it cost? $50?"
To get serious, I hate to do this because this is more fun, but
go ahead.
The solicitation of campaign contributions by a foreign government, very dangerous stuff. That's very dangerous stuff, and it seems, based on what little I've been able to discern, that he's really got a problem there. That's not going to go away.
Alan, I was going to say, my analogy is I was watching some video about people talking about weight loss, and one guy says, my weak spot is free food, and I feel with these politicians, it's like their weak spot is trading their influence for money, that they realize how much. I mean, this guy's living the life, living in a going to a, I don't know, what is it, a $7,000 a night hotel room and flying first class and some ridiculous.
And then he took matching campaign dollars from the city of $10 million.
Yeah. So I agree with Bill. I mean, it's really super serious. And then the fact that the Turkish government, the Turkish official, I guess, said, okay, we need to get into this building for a gathering, a UN gathering or something. And the building inspectors, the fire inspectors said it's not passable. And he said, the guy said, take care of it. And he took care of it and overrode the objections of the fire department. So
look, could this also be fair play? I mean, from the terms of prosecution, we're not just prosecuting Republicans. Now we're prosecuting Democrats. I mean, can we argue that this is really showing that the Justice Department, at least the Southern District of New York, is doing their job? Wait.
You mean the only people we're going to start convicting are criminals?
Yeah. But
no, Bill, Republicans. Come on, get with the memo.
But it's somewhat, rebuts that argument that this is one-sided. It's not one-sided. You had Hunter, who gives
Senator Menendez. Senator Menendez.
So I think in some way this shows that the Department of Justice is doing just what it should be doing, and the Southern District of New York is just doing its job equally to all. And I think it's actually, it's okay with
but look at
and but I get it, and I know the justice cannot wait for nothing or anything. However, could we just wait another 4 weeks? Let's get past the election. I don't want people to be distracted. We need everyone to be focused. Seriously. I mean, if he took the money, whether it's $50 or $50 million, what is he going to do? Give up let's get past November.
Actually, Beverly, I think what was happening in New York was about crowd control. Too many people were standing in front of Trump Tower flipping it off. Now they can go to Gracie Mansion and flip that off. So it kind of, distributes it out.
I guess.
For the rest of the country, though, I have to say, and we're all people that follow the news, and not to be snobby about it, but most people are like, well, of course the mayor of New York is corrupt.
Right.
I mean, nobody expects anything less, which I think is a really sad thing. I love New York, but on the other hand, you know,
until just a couple, 3 years ago, I was seeing there was a particular person in my network that just kept that used New York as a synonym for a dangerous city, you know, and New York is so wealthy now that it's like
Manhattan.
I mean, it's like a gated Manhattan in particular is
and
like
Brooklyn, parts of
community
Brooklyn.
for the rich, and the outer boroughs are becoming that way as well.
The only danger is that you'll go completely broke.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you are safer on the streets of New York City than probably, you know, dozens of other American cities.
Right.
But it's like that era of the 70s still sticks in so many people's heads that they just can't, and it never occurs to them to think past it, you know.
Look,
but,
Nancy, my dad's view of New York, actually even before we lived there, was forged by the movie Death Wish. And
great movie.
And even like when I would go to New York on a trip, he would tell me every single time, don't ride the subway.
Exactly. That's the best part.
My idea like the Pelham 1, 2, 3, right?
My idea of New York is still guys and dolls.
Well, Barb. Finally, what happened was I told him it's a lot safer to ride the subway after Bernard Goetze did what he did. I said, I'm hitching my post to that guy. Well, speaking of New York, this one of the things that New York is the epicenter for is the United Nations General Assembly and Security Council. And this week was the opening of the current 24-25 session. And so we had, of course, a steady procession of world leaders coming in and giving their speeches, including our own President Biden. I don't know if anybody watched the speech, but I thought that the speech in many ways sort of paralleled that of the United States as a whole. He was giving almost his swan song speech, and yet at the same time talking about what America has done and what it should do, focusing equally on climate change, fentanyl, along with some mentions of the Ukraine and Gaza. It seemed as though a lot of people responded to the speech by wondering about whether America's footprint is still as influential around the world. Any thoughts about either the speech? Yeah, Allan.
I watched the speech. I mean, I thought some of the content was fine. I thought it was pretty uninspiring the way it was delivered. I was kind of sad about that. And I think, look, you know, even presidents with more energy, like Bill Clinton near the end of their second term, suddenly lose power and lose influence in the world. They become the lame ducks. And I think Biden is not only a lame duck, but also people see him as really a very, very elderly statesman. So I was a little bit like, it was such a great opportunity to inspire, and it was pretty uninspiring speech, I thought. So
Nancy, you had your hand up. Was that in agreement with being uninspired?
I didn't watch the speech, so I really have no opinion on it. I read about it later. You know, it sounded like there was kind of a note of sadness to it, which I'm sure is to be expected as, you know, a politician who's been on the world stage for decades, you know, gets ready to exit, particularly under the circumstances. But I have to plead ignorance on this one. So,
yeah, I mean, I didn't see a lot of it, but I agree with Allan as it relates to a little sadness. But I think we're going to see more of this. I mean, I make no mistake about it. I love Joe Biden, and I really, really do. When you think about what it means to him, a person who can probably not even remember when he was not a public servant, this has to be sad for him. And so I think as we go along with the end of the year and you hear speeches and you get closer to the end of his term, you're going to hear that in his voice sadder and sadder because, you know, this man has always lived, you know, a public servant life, and it's got to be tremendously sad for him to now turn that page.
Right.
Well, it's even worse for me is the fact is that he actually now has to act like she is the president. She was the president for the last 4 years. There was no Joe Biden. If you listen to the speeches and the coverage in her speeches, she has been the president. He didn't exist.
Right.
Well, that's what Trump and Vance are certainly promoting in all of their ads. Bill.
Yeah, I watched the speech. I I completely agree with Alan's perspective on it. I thought the words were great. I thought the delivery was lacking. But in a far broader context, you look at what is going on at the UN. Bibi Netanyahu also spoke. I want to get this quote right, which means I need my glasses.
And by the way, I mean, technically speaking, he should have been arrested because of the International Criminal Court's warrant against him.
You might want to address that, but I'm considered biased. I'm trying not to. But here's what he said about the UN at the UN. He calls it a contemptible house of darkness and anti-Semitic swamp of bile. When you have members of the UN talking about the UN that way, and when you can't get some agreement about what the UN should be, when we bring our darker side in rather than our angels in, I think that this does not bode well. The United Nations is looking more like the League of Nations recently.
I agree with that.
Well, Bill, John Bolton actually said, "Well, that's my blue pill for the day." So there was some agreement with Netanyahu.
I watched his speech this morning. As always, it's disappointing. I don't trust the guy. It's sad because the guy has no end game. It's like just war. We'll fight till we win. I mean, we've seen in '82 they went up to Beirut to get rid of the PLO. I mean, every war we've seen, like in Afghanistan, we're there 20 years, and it's always
42, Alan. I mean,
okay.
we were there in a proxy war.
But it's always, these wars are never ending, and you can always say we need more security and we should keep fighting and stuff like that. But this guy, I mean, you can't trust him, one, because he's trying to save his job, so we don't know whatever he does, whether it's for good or bad. And it's sad. It's sad that he's the man delivering a speech that's so important at this time. And I mean,
it's sad that he's drawing the entire world into a potential cataclysmic event. I agree with what you're saying, Alan. I don't disagree with what you're saying. The unfortunate problem is that while other nations are talking about the need to find a peaceful solution in the Middle East, Netanyahu could not do more to prevent that. He's expanding the war, not restricting the war. He's doing everything he can to make sure that there can be no peaceful resolution, that the hostages won't be brought back home, and that, we talked earlier on, I went back and looked at one of the old shows. Alan, you and I agreed what we need to do to get rid of organizations like Hamas is to have a Marshall Plan for Gaza. Anybody believe that's in the making? Anybody believe that anybody's thinking about rebuilding Gaza? Anybody worried about the Palestinian people? Or are we just looking to get rid of them? And I think that when Israel sends Netanyahu to make that speech at the UN, it just furthers that problem.
I want to just add one thing, though. I was reading Haaretz, and look, I think there's extremists on both sides here, and the thing is, and I think both sides have sabotaged some of the talks. But I was reading and saying that in the last few weeks, that Sinwar has not responded to any dialogue at all, and there's some question whether he's even still alive or he's just decided to go further underground. But I don't know. I mean, like I said, there's extremism on both sides, and it's not good for the people who are suffering. Except
that we, the American people, are arming the extremists on one of those sides. We are, the American government, our tax dollars are going to fund the bombing in Gaza and in Beirut and in southern Lebanon. I don't disagree with you. There are extremists on both sides. I don't disagree with you. The Palestinians are caught in the middle. I don't disagree with you. The Israelis deserve to have security and peace. However, the United States government is the one providing the weapons to do this destruction. I think it requires us to take a more careful look at our role.
No.
Well, as Joel, sorry, go ahead.
Just, I was going to answer just part of your question, which I think it dovetails about the American footprint in international relations. We have an American first policy that much of the nation wants. Even some Democrats would have us, more a policy of greater restraint. So I do think that the question is whether or not America's footprint is going to diminish. Absolutely, especially if Trump is in office. We're going to go back essentially to a League of Nations. It's even weaker than the League of Nations. So just as on a macro level, America's influence is going to diminish. China's is going to increase. I mean, Iran. The whole structure of post-World War peace is going to be eliminated, and that's because we will not have center stage any longer.
Well, the one thing that I picked up this week is the fact that the larger Arab community is actually supporting U.S. involvement with Israel on the bombing because they don't care about Palestine. Okay. At the same token, we're giving Russia, China to say we're going to create their new NATO. Okay, they're talking about leaving NATO. So this is causing a lot of problems for the U.S. because everybody's supporting us, but for the wrong reason.
Ed, when you're saying the Arab community is the aggregate, I mean, I suspect that doesn't necessarily mean the Lebanese American community.
No, I'm talking about Arabia. Yes, the larger, more successful.
Well, I mean, but I would argue that there's probably then quite a bit of daylight between the leadership in especially Gulf states and what the Arab street is necessarily saying.
That's always been true.
Yeah. So, Allan.
I was also reading an article today about how some of the Syrians who've been displaced because of the war there, somewhere in Turkey or whatever, they hate Hezbollah because Hezbollah has bombed a lot of their neighborhoods and stuff like that. Yet they are supportive of Hezbollah fighting for the Palestinians, and so they're mixed there.
Well, I mean, this is part of the causation, right? That, I mean, Hezbollah was actually created after Israel invaded in '78 and occupied southern Lebanon, up to the Litani River. But Ed, back to your point about obviously what seems to be some strange endorsements. We have one here locally. The mayor of Hamtramck, Amir Khalid, Yemeni-American, standing shoulder to shoulder with none other than former President Donald Trump on his recent visit to Flint, representing one of the countries that Trump had placed on the travel ban and has pledged to do so on day one again, endorsing the Donald for the elections. And Allan, I know you wrote extensively about this.
I did a story for the Washington Post that ran last October on the mayor and the city council, and it's supposed to be the first city council in the country that's all Muslim. They voted to ban the gay pride flag on city property, and so I had discussions with them, and one, their idea is that homosexuality is against Islamic law. And that they have conservative views, and he's angry at people like Dana Nessel and other Democrats who attacked him. He met with Michael Flynn, and a group of people met with Michael Flynn, and Michael Flynn was talking about the wokeness of America and how horrible it is, and all these kind of gender operations and all that kind of stuff. And so he has kind of been inching. He's a Democrat, but he sees the Republicans as being more supportive of the social conservativeness, and it's interesting because when the Muslims, particularly you get the Yemenis and the Bangladeshis, they were a minority at one point in Hamtramck, and they wanted call to prayer. I think it was in 2001 or 2003. The Polish majority of people there were against all the noise, and the city council that was very liberal and the mayor that was liberal said, no, we're going to let you do that because we want to welcome you. Well, as they become the majority, they've decided democracy is we set the standards of what democracy is because we're the majority, but not realizing that you're discriminating against the minority, and that's not true democracy.
But isn't that the quintessentially Republican message these days, Alan? That's 50.1% take all, and it seems as though Mr. Mayor has really internalized that.
Can I just say this guy is the world's most credulous Muslim? I mean, he's backing Donald Trump, and he supports a ceasefire in Gaza.
Right.
And if Donald Trump is reelected, you know what the ceasefire in Gaza is going to be? After Netanyahu kills every last Palestinian in Gaza, then they'll stop shooting, and that will be the ceasefire. I mean, come on, you idiot. I mean, the fact that he was like making nice with Michael Flynn. I mean, Michael Flynn is, I don't care what anybody says, that guy is a Russian stooge, maybe a spook, for all I know. And the idea that he's like willing to get in bed with that lunatic who couldn't even last a month in the Trump administration in 2017. I mean, this guy is, he's got to go. I mean, he's,
Well, I'm pretty sure that his endorsement is not necessarily categorically well accepted in Hamtramck.
I would say that's probably true. And the idea that but the thing about Hamtramck that has always been great, at least since I've lived here, I moved here in 2005, is they call it the world in 2 square miles. It really, really is. I mean, I remember I had to stop there at the ATM, the PNC there at Joseph Campo and whatever, Kniff, one of those. And I remember standing in this ATM line with like a Polish grandma with those cornflower blue eyes, and the babushka, to a black dude, some sort of Arab dude in his, whatever his traditional garb is.
So you're saying a nondescript Arab dude.
Generic. I didn't feel comfortable enough to walk up to him and say, "Can you tell me what the name of your overcoat here?
Which one of those Islams are you?"
Yeah, which of those Islams are you? And I mean, he may have been Pakistan. I don't know. Anyway,
no, probably Yemeni.
And a hipster with the fedora and the beard and all that stuff. And I'm like, this is Hamtramck. I mean, my daughter's boyfriend lives there. He's a rock and roll musician. That's what is so great about Hamtramck. And to run it, like you said, it's like it's a winner take all. Now it's going to be a Muslim outpost in Metro Detroit is just so wrong, and I hate to see that happen.
Well, you've got a bank that's now a Victory Mosque, but you also have Smalls, one of the great venues to see concerts in.
Smalls is fantastic.
Right by another mosque. So as soon as you get done there, you can go pray away, whatever you did inside during the concert. Ed.
I love books.
Well, I wasn't surprised by his endorsement. I do a lot of work in the urban community. A lot of the Muslim are Republicans, especially if they're business owners, especially in Oakland County. I was not surprised at all by his endorsement at all.
No, you wouldn't be. No. Go ahead.
I mean, it made sense to me because I see what's happening in donations.
Yeah. When I was in March, when I was doing a story for the Washington Post on the celebration of how the war was impacting Ramadan, I interviewed the imam of the mosque, who is a young guy in his 30s. His parents are Palestinian. He grew up in New Jersey. And he said, "I'm definitely not voting for Biden." He says, "I'm debating." He says, "I might vote for Trump." He says, "I look at it between a guy who committed genocide and a guy who might commit genocide. I'm going to vote for the guy who might commit genocide." And, it's interesting. The uncommitted movement has put out a statement saying, "We're not endorsing Harris, but do not vote for Trump, and do not vote for a third party that might help elect Trump, because Trump is going to be much worse for the Arabs and Muslims." And so,
I agree with Ed. I'm not surprised at all. It's very disheartening because Hamtramck is rich with, cultural for everyone, and to see at this point you have a leader such as that. That's very disheartening. Hopefully, the citizens of Hamtramck will stay very woke in the next election. However, but giving his stance on a lot of things, it does not surprise me, that he threw his support behind Trump. I could not see him supporting Kamala, mainly for a lot of reasons he may have, but being a woman. And that's my opinion.
Possibly. Oh, Beverly, stop trying to make woke happen again.
Hey, Ed, can we sneak in 1 minute of commercials?
Yes, of course.
All right, here we go.
Hi, I'm Eric Sabri, your Wayne County Treasurer. If you're living in a home of a deceased family member and you're facing property tax foreclosure, the probate process can be helpful to you. If you file a probate petition and notify our office, the foreclosure proceedings will be halted during the probate process. Contact us at 313-224-5990 or email us at taxinfo@waynecounty.com. We're here to help.
Hi, I'm Vanessa Moss. I have over 4,000 signatures that say I should sit on the bench in 36th District Court. But the bureaucrats had me kicked off the ballot because they don't want you to elect someone who stands for fair and equal justice. And as a defense attorney, I've experienced injustice firsthand. Join the movement. Write in Vanessa Moss. Write in Vanessa Moss for 36th District Court. Remember, Vanessa Moss.
Right.
By the way, everybody, don't get a parking ticket in the city of Detroit and fall asleep when you go to traffic court, because Judge King is handling traffic court now, and we know how he feels about people falling asleep in his courtroom. So just, you've been warned. Well, part of the, go ahead, Bill.
I'm sorry. I respect our viewers so much in their comments. I want to acknowledge Ann Farrell's comment. She was absolutely right when she says that the United States has contributed $674 million in the last 8 months to the Palestinians. And that's true. I would point out, though, that they, during that same period of time, provided $3.8 billion with a B in military aid to Israel during that same period of time to create the humanitarian crisis. And I have a great deal of respect for you. I always enjoy your comments, but on that issue, you're comparing apples to peanuts.
So, Beverly, I mean, on the point that the various reasons why the mayor of Hamtramck might have endorsed Trump, one of them is perhaps a feeling of safety. Of course, perhaps he should have consulted with the Chaldean-American community back in 2020 or 2016 when it came to that. But, Allan, I do believe there's another group, demographic out there that Trump has said he will keep safe and protect.
Oh, yes, indeed. Let me find that one.
You will no longer be abandoned, lonely, or scared. You will no longer be in danger. You're not going to be in danger any longer. You will no longer have anxiety from all of the problems our country has today.
I know that sounds bad, but after those comments, he opened a commanding polling lead among stalker husbands from Lifetime movies.
Imagine our relief.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, the rest of that included, and God should wipe away all the tears from their eyes, and there shall be no more death. Neither shall there be sorrow or crying. Which is, of course, the priest from Titanic as the ship's going.
He can't even keep himself safe. Okay, go ahead.
He gets crazier every day.
Now, ladies, Barb, Nancy, Bev, you're on the show. You're women. Did that do it for you? I mean,
I did not do it for me. I'm sorry, it did not do it for me.
Sometimes it depends on the messenger. A convicted felon of abuse toward women. To give this message now that we're going to keep you safe. I have a hard time believing that.
And can I just say, I also that with that happening in the same week as that old whore Melania going on Fox and Friends to
Nancy,
give that.
How many times do I have to tell you she's young?
She's
I am not ashamed of my.
And she does, Nancy. She does wear nice suits. Okay, she does.
Yeah, she does, and it's flattering that she could get. I mean, she manages to get good tailoring for being a woman with enormous breast implants, and the rest of her body similarly weird
implants.
Proportioned. Huh?
They are implants. Are you
But
your picture back. You're gonna bring that
proud of and watch the progression.
But
she's an empty nester now. She's an empty nester now and has to move back to New York just so she can see her son.
I know. About the only thing I found entertaining about Melania's interview, it was infuriating because she was talking about what a good man her husband is, and the only thing he's guilty of is a few harsh tweets. but I did laugh out loud when she was talking about the first assassination attempt in July, and she said, Barron was outside playing sport. It's like the Rocky and Bullwinkle. I mean, I just keep hearing her in Natasha and Boris' voice. And
she was
playing sport.
Somebody called her to tell her too.
Yeah.
So she wasn't watching.
Can I just say the guy who says you can grab him by the pussy isn't the guy you want protecting women.
Oh, that's just voice talk. It's just locker room talk. So,
but Allan, I think that this issue about how men see women, and particularly various parts of their respective bodies, has a broader arc here in this country that is still contested.
Yes, Jimmy Kimmel has questioned some of the men about reproductive rights.
My wife was on the show talking about reproductive rights, and I started wondering, does the average American man even know what the term reproductive rights means?
Reproductive rights.
Reproductive rights. I don't know, just reproductive rights?
What are reproductive rights?
You know, I suppose you don't think about that kind of thing unless it's a problem.
Certain states don't have reproductive rights anymore?
Every woman has reproductive rights in this country.
Okay.
So your question is not focused right.
Look, this stuff matters. When I was a kid, my dad taught me about the birds and the bees, but being a doctor, he taught me every term in Latin because he wanted to make sure that when he sent me out, that the only chicks I could score with were ancient Roman. And boy, what a way to C-block his son.
I was going to say there's something about the word vulva that is just it comes from the deep in your throat.
We're laughing because it's funny, but you're almost about five weeks out from the election, and if that's true, this is sad. If individuals really do not know the true meaning of reproductive rights for women.
This is also Southern California too, so
Yeah, I hope they go and vote.
Go ahead, Bill.
I'm sure Ed can confirm this, but when I was in college, we did a survey. A bunch of people did these things where you went around and read the first 10 amendments to the Constitution, and people wouldn't support them. What do you guys? Communists?
Sounds communist to me. Yeah.
Well, remember in the late 70s, they didn't even know if Jimmy Carter was president.
Right. So it does help to explain why the race is so close.
First of all, happy 100th birthday to Jimmy Carter. He's been alive for more than 40% of this country's history. And Ed and Bill, thank you for confirming me that even probably a decade later, pickup lines were just as bad. Going around reading the first 10 amendments, you think you're going to really score with that?
Is he really? Is today his birthday?
Now that explains Bill's picture. Okay.
Is today Jimmy Carter's birthday?
I'm not sure. I mean, it's coming up.
Like
close,
a day or so off.
Okay.
It's actually
okay.
Alan, look, I said something to piss you off.
October.
Number there.
October 1st. Okay.
October 1st. Okay. And by the way, for the audience regarding Bill's afro, it was real and it was spectacular.
It really was.
I love it, Bill.
Well, I when we talk about that Jimmy Kimmel, we dismiss it as Southern California, but MSNBC was interviewing people in Saginaw, union members, and they asked people like, what does January 6th mean to you? And one guy's like, well, I know people were kind of angry and very emotional, but I'm not really sure what it was about. So I don't think, I mean, a lot of people have no idea about a lot of issues and they don't care. They want to know, how much is my gasoline? How much was the loaf of bread that I paid for? They don't care about it. They know nothing about the wars. They know nothing about reproductive rights.
And
they don't.
Lengel, what have both of our careers in journalism gotten us? We're just really good Trivial Pursuit players, and that's about it. You want me on your team, so.
Actually, Nancy,
in that light, Nancy, October 1st is Jimmy Carter's birthday.
Thank
Yep.
you very much. Okay,
And
so
by the way,
he's got to live for a couple more days, a few more days, and then he's
Got to hang on.
And
Nancy,
I will say once again. Oh, go ahead. I will say one.
Well, Saginaw is not the Mecca. It's not New York City. It's not Chicago, but it is America.
Yeah.
And there's a
But
lot
it is
of
the birthplace of me. That's
there's
where
a lot.
You and
Yeah.
Stevie Wonder.
Before we move on, can I drop one
Unfortunately,
bit of
Beverly, it's
knowledge
been downhill ever since.
and the tennis playing Williams sisters.
Yeah.
Not only that, but you forget that one of the largest and best well-known outside of America, the best Japanese garden is in Saginaw.
Yes.
Wow. Who knew?
And we make the best tacos. People would not know that. Few people.
And can I just say this too? Jimmy Carter and Berry Gordy Jr. are second cousins.
Really?
You did not know that. All right, this is I love this. We recently took house guests to the Motown Museum, and I told this to the tour guide. He did not know. I'll be as brief as possible. Everyone who remembers the Carter administration remembers Ms. Lillian, right? Jimmy's mother. Okay. Ms. Lillian's grandfather was Ms. Lillian's maiden name was Gordy, and her grandfather was a slaveholder in Georgia who had a second set of children with one of the women that he had enslaved on his farm or plantation or whatever it was. And Berry Gordy comes from that line. And so Berry Gordy and Jimmy Carter share a great grandfather, which makes them second cousins.
Wow. Hey, Nancy,
why doesn't everybody know this? This is the weirdest thing American.
Nancy, is that the inspiration to the Supreme song "Love Child"?
It could be, but it tells you something that two men who have been so consequential in American history are that closely related to a slaveholder. It just shows you how close slavery is to our era. People think of it as ancient history. It is not. It's history, but it is not ancient. It's
well, it also shows you divergence, kind of like the movie Twins. With Danny DeVito and Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Well, I wonder if they ever talked about it. I'm sure they, like, hey, cuz, I don't know. It's just
reunion. I'd like to, if I can ask Ed, is a little bit of a jump here about the polls that we're seeing. I think everybody's trying to figure out, the latest polls show really close to Michigan, close. Harris has got a skosh of a lead there. What's your interpretation of all the polls that are coming out?
Well, first of all, Trump has a lock-in between 46 and 47% on election day. That's true nationwide, okay? Recent Saginaw has been because suburb out of this over 500, whatever number of counties in the United States, Saginaw is right in the middle. There's so many people more purple than Saginaw and blue than Saginaw, and they predicted the presidency right now since 1992. That's why it was picked. And what the polls are showing the fact is coming down, do African Americans respond to the polls? Our problem right now is turnout on the Democrats. When blacks are excited about voting, poll numbers go up for Kmart. When they go down, turnout, then they go down. Okay, so there's still an issue of turnout. That's what the polls are showing. It comes down to turnout for Kamala.
And so what do you say in Michigan, if you had to predict Michigan?
Right now, Kamala does have a lead. Okay, but she's still like Hillary. She's still below 50%. She still hasn't broken 50%, and that's what the problem is.
Wow.
I think we're going to go blue. We're going to stay blue. And to Ed's point, he's absolutely correct. And that's why the colleagues and a lot of us who are stumping, we're making sure that, more importantly, the turnout is great. I mean, it's a great effort that's going on every day, going to lead all the way up to November 6th in Wayne County, particularly in Detroit and those urban areas. And we're encouraging them, do not just vote for Kamala. Go up and down that entire ballot.
Well, here's something why I'm glad you brought that up, Beverly, because when you look 16 to 20, Detroit determined the election, okay? And in 2016, 6% of the Detroit vote was third party. That was about 10,000 votes that could have went to Hillary that went to third party candidate.
Right.
Okay. Now in 2020, there was almost no third party vote in Detroit, and Detroit upped their turnout by almost 10 to 15, 13,000 votes. So it comes down to turnout in those very urban core districts that we need to get.
And one thing I can tell that the former president did, he totally energized. They always was a great part of this voting election in America, the Haitian community. He's really energized them now with this rhetoric over the text. So hopefully we're going to see greater numbers in the Haitian community as well in this election.
Ed, how much do you think? I mean, the House GOP just passed a spending resolution in Congress defying Trump in many ways. Do you think that there's any softness left in the GOP that this might be seen as a betrayal by Trump, and therefore people might consider voting for someone else?
Well, the problem is not that. Is Johnson needed to do that to save any hope of maintaining control of Congress. Okay, Trump is not part of the argument. This is about Mike Johnson trying to save his majority. That's what the whole debate is. Okay, the biggest problem with Trump is the fact is that he's pissed off evangelicals. He pissed off all the religious groups. That's what's going to determine this, and whether or not what do the young males decide. Most of the young males over 25, not the really young, they have to decide who they're going to vote for, because they're not Trump and Biden. They don't know, do they want Trump because he's the kind of life they want, or they really want something to their benefit. Right now, it's getting down to that male vote, because we're getting super vote for males now voting for Trump. The women's already there, but usually the men tend to be soft in between. The trouble right now is the male vote.
Well, here we have it's interesting how this ad, I think, in the Lincoln Project is trying to appeal to men. It's of Sam Elliott, the very macho dude. And here's just a little brief snippet. It's by the Lincoln Project.
Kamala Harris has more courage, more honor, more guts than this guy ever had. So you decide, are we really going back down that same fucking broken road, or are we moving forward?
And I was going to say real quickly that I do agree with Ed's analogy. However, I think most of us can say in our households, when men are slow on things, at the end of the day, when we get closer to it, the women are going to prevail, because you have to live with us beyond election day. So I think of nothing else, you're going to vote that way because you want, stability in the household after election day. So I still think we're going to win with the men at the end.
So I love you, except when you go over to West Michigan. It's just the opposite. You can't live with your husband if you don't.
No, we can't get everyone. We can't get majority.
So when you
men know.
When you hear that ad,
Beverly, not all men.
Rights if they don't.
That's what I'm saying. Not all men.
If they understand the notion, happy wife, happy life. You're right. I understand that, but some men don't care about the happy life.
We're trying to get the majority. Remember, we're not trying to get 100%. We're trying to get the majority, even if it's by one. That's all we need.
Bill, you're having an exercise in futility. Even that reassurance by Trump isn't swaying these ladies. I'm not sure how much sway you have. So who's when Sam Elliott is speaking, are you thinking Sam Elliott Star is Born or as Gar from Mask? Because that's what I'm thinking.
I'm thinking The Big Lebowski myself.
Okay.
My former neighbor in Indiana had such a hot crush on Sam Elliott, and I'm sure it's still in flames because she
with all this new hair and mustache,
everything about that guy. Yeah,
it would.
Yeah.
I hate to
Sam
bring it up.
Elliott in the lifeguard.
I'm thinking Roadhouse.
Or Roadhouse.
Okay.
Roadhouse.
I think a lot of men are probably thinking about Sam Elliott's wife, Nancy. So Catherine Ross.
Big Lebowski. Yeah. I believe I saw a really bad adaptation of any of you John D. McDonald fans. My father had all of the Travis McGee novels, and I inherited quite a few of them. They're products of their time, but they're good reads. And I think there was a bad adaptation of one of them, and I believe Sam Elliott played Travis McGee, which is.
I think you're right. Yeah. No, so, I had Hardy Boys books, Nancy, which I blew up on disco night. That's why I stayed in the middle. I do want to ask Barb. There's an increasing conflict between Stellantis and the UAW that's brewing. What's your take on what's going on between the two?
Stellantis has a very vague idea of what a contract means, and this is
no. You mean they have a concept of a contract?
A concept of a contract, right? And they have a concept of causing a pretty big strike, stopping production of the Durango in Michigan, moving a lot of jobs to Mexico, and Sinn Féin don't play. So I think if they don't back down, I think there's going to be a pretty major strike. And good, fuck them. Oh my
That's the
God.
reason why they actually had the Stellantis CEO is almost going to be fired. So they're having him take the heat for the firing because he may be losing his job here pretty quickly.
Good. Good.
Oh,
They should have done it to Mary Barra.
I think the only other European intrigue like that, Ed, is at the Vatican when it comes to the Council of or the College of Cardinals. So let's
Well,
let's
Billy
see.
Bragg is going to be in the 9th and 10th, and hopefully, if there is a picket line, Billy will be on it. We've been talking to him, and we're trying to get him together with Sinn Féin. But but Fain's he's a busy man. It's interesting. So because he's been stumping for Kamala, and then it will be a very large strike.
He's very.
And I hope it ends quickly, but because that's not good for anybody. It's easy to say that, but that is a hard thing to live through. So I hope.
Remember, Fain's under investigation too for his own problems. So
Yeah,
he's not
but-
on that either.
They're not going to let him alone because the people that did not like what happened to the other UAW presidents, and they are in jail where they belong.
Correct.
Yeah. But and Ed, he's no Eric Adams. He doesn't fly Turkish Airlines, so I think it's pretty
And you
safe.
got to remember, just because people are being investigated, we got to remember that doesn't mean you've done anything wrong. Seriously.
Also true. Yes, that innocence till proven guilty inconvenience that we have
Well,
there.
there
Bev.
you go. Proven guilty because he is losing staff already. He has been losing staff. What's interesting, his favorite congressman is Rashida Tlaib.
Yeah.
Oh, very.
She's one of mine.
Okay. Hey, Alan, I thought what we would do, given the amount of schmuckery that seems to waft through every possible area of our lives, that we would have an extended final segment.
Can I play
So
one more?
Yes.
Couple
Yes, of course.
commercials, and then we'll.
Neighborhood beautification. That's very important to Detroit. It's very important to block clubs, organizations, and people who live in the community. We got started with 2 lots and a vision of a treehouse center. Because if we can take these blighted lots, Detroit give us grants to be able to do something with them that the community wants, it's a plus because we're bringing our neighborhoods back to where we want them to be, where they should be. All because I live in Detroit.
This is Alyssa Slotkin, Democrat running for the U.S. Senate. I want to share a story about who, more than anyone, taught me the importance of listening and accountability. It was President Barack Obama. I served in the White House on his national security staff. I got to see him in action, up close, and behind closed doors in the Oval Office. First, he was brilliant, and therefore demanded people really knew their stuff. It was President Obama who grilled me on issues and demanded accountability on what we said and did. That commitment to accountability is exactly the approach I use today, listening to our communities. It's why I've written an opportunity agenda with detailed plans to strengthen Black businesses, increase Black wealth, and provide real opportunities for our youth. Because, as President Obama taught me, you better say what you mean and mean what you say. So that's why I approve this message.
And
It's weird.
going to the last.
All right, are you ready?
Downtown Detroit, Robert Wells, Schmuck of the Week.
Well, this extended play of Schmuck of the Week has been brought to us at the urging and suggestion of none other than Nancy Derringer, who claims that we are living at a time of, to borrow from one of her favorite artists, Warren Zevon, a dirty life and times. So, in honor of both the dearly departed Warren Zevon and Nancy, you go first, Nancy.
Okay, I'll go first. We already covered one of my schmucks, which is Amir Ghalib. I'm sorry, I don't have the BBC pronouncer. How does he pronounce his name?
It's Amir Ghalib.
Amir Ghalib. Okay, Amir Ghalib, mayor of Hamtramck. I already said my piece on him, but there's 3 others on my list. I mean, I was amazed. I always make this on the other side of my planner. I always put my schmucks as I think of them during the week. And so first on the list is RFK Jr., who came out this week against fluoridation of water. In the past, he has also endorsed raw milk, and he has the gall to be running I don't think he's not running for president, but he's running to be like, the third suck ass from the right to Donald Trump with his own slogan, "Make America Healthy Again." And he's already come out against two of the most important public health advances of the 19th and 20th century, which is, of course, pasteurization and fluoridation of water, and which has saved, millions of lives. Pasteurization certainly has. And as far as fluoridation of water, I mean, a lot of us are a little older here. We all remember when grandma used to have dentures, and it was kind of like a given that as you got older, you needed dentures because your teeth would be rotting out of your mouth. That is not the case anymore. I have all of my teeth. Most of you probably have all of your teeth, and I don't intend to ever get dentures. And I credit that to healthy or going to a dentist, and mainly to fluoridation of water. So it's like this guy wants to make America healthy again by coming out against a whole, and never mind. And then vaccines. I mean, we can also talk about vaccines too.
Oh my God.
So he's number one. The next one is Clay Higgins, racist Louisiana, who tweeted a open threat to the Haitians and other immigrants in Springfield, Ohio, and everywhere else. He says something like, "You better get out of our country by January 20th, or we're coming for you," essentially. Mm-hmm. And he deleted it later. He claimed that he prayed on it because he's such a good Christian. But, I mean, he basically he's a racist piece of shit, and he demonstrated he's a racist piece of shit. And so he's schmuck number 2.
He needs to know the history of America when he says our country. Well, go
our
ahead.
Country, exactly. All right, actually, he's schmuck number 3 after the mayor of Hamtramck and RFK. But I think the absolute ultimate one has to go to Bernie Moreno, who is running for the U.S. Senate in Ohio, my native state, against Sherrod Brown, who apparently at a fundraiser earlier this year expressed wonderment that women cared so much about abortion. And then he added, and especially women that are older than 50 would care about reproductive freedom. Okay, as though none of us have daughters, granddaughters, aunts, mothers,
nieces,
memory
before we turn 50.
Right.
This guy, and I've over the years I've heard women say they don't even think of us as people, and I've sometimes thought, maybe they're getting a little hysterical, but I think that's a perfect example of an American politician who is very close. This is another close race that shouldn't be close in Ohio. On the verge of ascending to the United States Senate, who thinks it's crazy that women would care about reproductive freedom if they don't have to immediately have an abortion.
I love that RFK, he came to town and pleaded with people, do not vote for me. And you know what? I'm going to listen to him.
Alan, you made a mistake.
Well, Alan,
if you could vote for me.
Yeah.
Alan, if he could move one person, well, I guess mission accomplished. So Nancy, I think, thank you for that. I hope you are feeling satiated, and next time we'll make sure there's an aluminum pole and some feats of strength to accompany that.
My therapist, Dr. Joel Sklar, will tell you that good for me, and so carry on.
Okay.
Perfectly fine.
Okay. Yes. For anybody who thought that this show wasn't exothermic, there you go. Ed.
Well, one thing I did mention, and the other thing is that RFK in New York is saying, please vote for me, because of his whole problem with the woman issue, that he's now wanting New Yorkers to vote for him. But outside of that, my two schmucks are, one is the Jack Schmuck is Donald Trump. He finally realized that Russia beat the Nazis and beat Napoleon Bonaparte. He was finally informed about that. And that's why he backed Russia in the war, which is really crazy in all these years. And number 2 is that the Republican Party, which is national, Pete Ostra, Livingston County, has already announced that the votes are being stolen from Republicans because they're unregistered immigrants. Okay, they're aliens. They're announcing already that they're losing votes in Michigan because of the influx of immigrants. Okay, that are not American citizens in Oakland. And matter of fact, they're starting to do that in Oakland County against the county exec, not taking care of it.
Crazy.
Oh, good
Crazy
grief.
shit.
Beverly.
Well, my schmuck of the week is the lovely Secretary of State of Montana, Christy Jacobson, who didn't do a little checking with her software computer company when they put out the ballots for our military, our veterans, and people who live abroad, Americans, to vote. And then after it was discovered that Kamala's name was not on the ballot, she said basically only one person had contacted their office and brought that error to their attention, when in fact it was more individuals who caught that error. So she is my schmuck of the week with a key role. I love Montana, that state, but I think in her role, and she's running again for election in November, but I think this is something that is vital, that she should make sure her and her staff fact check and check the system before they put it out. So having not done that, she is my schmuck of the week.
All right. The big lie from the big sky. All right. All right. Joel.
I got three. One is the demonization of immigrants is god awful. Anybody who's demonizing immigrants just because they're immigrants from wherever they come from, you're a fucking schmuck. You gotta get your shit together and think straight. Okay. Two, I have Perry Farrell from Jane's Addiction, who was on stage at a concert and apparently was upset that he could be heard and began to fight with his guitarist. And then the bass player came by and a bass tech kind of roughed him up, took him backstage, where apparently he slugged Dave Navarro. And today they announced they're no longer really a band. So, the lesson is, if you got problems, take them backstage. Don't be so fucking public. So the third one is Rudy Giuliani, who just got disbarred in DC.
Yeah.
And I don't think I've seen a bigger schmuck in the world. Seriously, this arc of his life is just, whoever's going to do the movie and play the part, you got me. I got to watch it, because this guy.
And there you go.
I gotta say this, Joel. I think that Giuliani's fall can be traced directly to alcohol. Okay, I mean, I think that he's basically a big old drunk, and he's just lost control.
No, Nancy, I think it's a hair dye.
Well, but for true like schmuck of the millennium, I think JD Vance is like a real comer, because that guy is stone cold sober and doing this shit. So go figure. But anyway.
But he didn't keep giving and giving for years. Rudy's on a limited lease.
Right. True.
Apparently back in 2020, messages that Vance sent out said that Trump had failed to deliver. But I think that probably was in the context of pizzas from the whole Pizzagate thing. But Joel, when it comes to Jane's Addiction and what Perry Farrell did, you should realize nothing shocking. So
No, but it was great to watch. I like Jane's Addiction, and they have some great tunes, but he seems like an asshole.
I saw them for $7 back in '88 on the Nothing Shocking tour at St. Andrews. It was actually a moment. It was amazing.
They're good. Dave Navarro can play great guitar.
Navarro is an amazing guy. Yeah,
they got a good band. So it's sad to see, but he's whatever.
Yeah. Barb.
Okay, I also have three. I'm glad that we're expanding it. Jake Tapper asking Nancy Pelosi about Donald Trump's statement that Kamala Harris has cognitive issues, and Nancy Pelosi rightly kind of went, "What the fuck are you talking about?" And Tapper's just looking at his little notes, but it's like, yeah, kind of the wrong person to talk about. Then there is Dana Bash, who continued to spread the lie about what Rashida Tlaib said to a Metro Times reporter, and it was bullshit. Again, hasn't backed off on that as far as I can tell. But to bring it on home, the biggest schmuck in the city of Detroit is an organization called Uncle and Me, who promoted heavily a Bridgerton-themed party at the Harmony Club in the beautiful renovated theater that they have up there. And for a couple $100, you could dress in a Regency outfit, which means, by the way, that you pick the girls up till they're right under your chin, and then get to wear breeches, and you get to dance to Regency music, and you have a lovely Bridgerton. They had a diamond thing where you vote on the most beautiful person. when they got there, there was a few cold appetizers. There were bowls of Kit Kats. There was a stripper pole with a stripper and one embarrassed-looking woman playing the violin in the corner, and a whole lot of pissed-off men in breeches, because they were like, she dragged me to this, dear God. And really sad people that were screwed out of the money. And if you go to Uncle and Me LLC, suddenly their website's gone. I wonder what happened with that. But it was really, you know, the interviews of the people, it's like they were genuinely disappointed.
Yeah.
They wanted to do this. They bought, oh, hush, Joel.
Just no, Barb, you're right.
It's a little satire, I'm sure, Joel.
Barb's right.
Turning
I
a
just
little-
came back from D.C. last night all week, and I was laying in my hotel room bed, and I watched the local news in D.C., and they covered this story. They went on for like 3 minutes covering the story in Detroit. And the male anchor said, you know, the male anchor, they were laughing back and forth, and they highlight all the details and stuff. And of course, they said they hope everyone, you know, gets their money back. But the male anchor in D.C. said, well, the stripper looked a little okay.
She was not a stripper.
Well, she was a pole. He saw the pole.
I was just going to say, New York Magazine actually got an interview with the stripper. And or not the stripper, the dancer, I should say. And she's one of these, like, I think she's one of these people from the Detroit Circus School where she performs on fabric and the round hoop and everything. But you know what, and this is something, I can't write this piece, but I suggested it to an editor friend of mine. I said, find what I found really touching about that story. I mean, laughing because so many of the details are just hilarious. But Bridgerton has a very strong Black fan base, mainly because they practice like modern casting where they don't consider race in race-blind casting, I guess you'd call it.
Right.
And so the Queen of England in this fantasy version of England is Black, and nobody says, oh, Queen, you know, so-and-so is Black. And,
right.
yeah, I mean, they basically just take all racial issues off the table and allow, you know, actors of color to play these parts that they never would have,
and everyone gets
in reality. Exactly.
It's the Hamilton effect, isn't it?
Yeah, the Hamilton effect. That's a good way of putting it. And so
Yeah.
there were a lot of Black women there who were, you know, had bought these dresses and, you know, with the tits under your chin and all that stuff, and they really really wanted to have a good time,
only to be ripped off.
Exactly. So, you know, there you go.
Yes, thank you, Joel, for pointing out. Yes, the late great Dame Maggie Smith, an amazing actress.
Oh, did she die, Maggie?
She died.
Yeah,
Speaking of like Downton Abbey, you know, there you
Downton
go.
Abbey, exactly.
Right.
So Barb, I'm pretty sure that if you see a website called Uncle and I, it's perfectly safe. So, you know, just
Uncle and I
you know.
babysitting. That's even better.
It's actually Uncle and Me.
And me, Uncle
and
and me.
That's perverse. I mean, wow. Okay. All right. Well, Bill.
Yeah, you guys were amazing. I usually have about 8 of these, and you took 6. So you're getting my last 2, and one is just my most common. So I'm going to go first with Jimmy Donaldson, aka Mr. Beast, who is I think he's 26-year-old mover and shaker on YouTube or on multimedia, and he's been accused with some credibility, apparently, of faking videos, rigging results in contests, giving rewards and prizes to his friends and family rather than random subscribers, and having fake content in his videos. I did not know who this guy was, and when somebody sent me a note about him, I looked him up. This is terrifying, that we're making billionaires out of 26-year-old guys who do nothing except create a little content on YouTube. Terrifying. My other goes to one of my favorite choices for Schmuck of the Week. He and Trump, in my opinion, still put Vance and Rudy and all those other guys to shame, and that's Bibi Netanyahu. He, for all the reasons I talked about earlier, his ability to refuse to end this war and his ability to trying to eliminate the Palestinians terrifying to me. And our endorsement of his conduct makes it even worse. So he and Trump, by the way, Trump and he, I'm sure, are very good friends, and for good reason. They walk together.
Yeah.
Bill, when you were
think he should
talking
be
about
Schmuck for the rest of the year, he really should be Schmuck. He should just stay on the list.
Listen, any time as to Trump, I knew Trump was my schmuck of a lifetime when he made George Bush look like I missed him. I mean, I now miss George W. Bush as president of the United States compared to where we were with Trump. So if you can get me there, he's pretty schmucky.
Bill, I noticed when you were talking about 26-year-old social media billionaires in the background, I heard shares. If I could turn back time, is that true?
No,
it might just be disturbance. Okay.
Absolutely not. I could have made more money on my career. I think some things are worth doing for reasons of integrity. I remember the line, "What does it avail a man or a woman to gain a fortune but to lose his soul?"
Nothing.
With all this negative stuff, can we say one positive? Well, for all the negative stuff, I'd like to put out a shout out to Detroit, because Detroit was featured in AGT's closing panel. Detroit Youth Choir was featured.
Wow.
And the closing act for the finale for this season, the Youth Choir they brought them back specifically for the show.
Yep.
Wow.
Congrats.
I love
They
it.
are the best. They really are the best.
Yes, they are.
Alan.
I am going to go, I think, one, Mayor Eric Adams, who, once again, it just really drives me crazy that people get in these great positions and have the opportunity to do all these great things and end up fucking it up because they just lose sight of the job and start to become greedy. The other person is Nikki Haley, who's apparently got a show on Sirius XM, and she goes on and on. One of her quotes is, "I have issues." She's trashing Donald Trump. She says, "You're not going to hear me say glowing things about Donald Trump's personality. I have issues with him as well. I have not forgotten what he said about me. I have not forgotten what he said about my husband or his deployment time or his military service." And then she goes on to make sure that people know she's endorsing Trump because she needs, in 2028, she needs that MAGA vote. And so she's got no
spine, nothing.
No spine, just really totally disgraceful.
Yeah.
All right. That's it. That's all you've got, Alan? Come on. This is an extended show.
I didn't know it was extended.
Alan, you're not going to say anything about the Tigers? Go Tigers.
I want to say something, though. Actually, I have a story in today's Deadline Detroit that those of you who are true Detroiters remember Chung's over at Cass in Peterborough was closed. And now they are planning on putting in 3 Asian restaurants, at least 1 Chinese, and they're hoping for 3, but at least 1 Chinese and 2 other Asian restaurants are going to be there. So I think it's really cool, that area. Well, you'll have the Peterborough, which is an Asian restaurant nearby, but these,
Asian-ish.
Asian-ish.
I mean, I got something called a cheeseburger egg roll there.
Oh, right. Yeah. Oh, bastardization of Asian food.
Although it was delicious. It was very good. So there.
I had a corned beef egg roll the other day at a place called Lefty's. I have to tell you, it was amazing.
Was it good? Okay.
Yeah, I liked it.
That's a Detroit.
But it didn't pass. It certainly didn't pass out as any kind of Asian food, and it wasn't from a Jewish deli. The corned beef, if you had stripped it out, was just as good as any Jewish deli I've had.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's why.
That's a testimonial.
That's why you have to deconstruct the whole thing. You take out the corned beef, you eat that sort of on the Jewish side, and then you use chopsticks for the wonton part. So you have to put some work into it, Bill. All right. So my schmucks include none other than the chairman of the Michigan Republican Committee, Pete Hoekstra, former ambassador to the Netherlands under Trump, for already putting it out there that the Democrats are going to steal the election.
Yeah.
This guy's not exactly known for his truthfulness. I mean, he was a proponent of the false claim of WMDs in Iraq. Hysteria mongering when they were looking to shut down Guantanamo. and perhaps move some of the people to maximum security facilities in Michigan, and thinking somehow or the other they were going to escape, like near Hancock, and then also trying to block Syrian refugees from coming here because they would be a dangerous element. Can't get more squirrely than him, except if you are Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, who apparently buried the determinations made by USAID and the State Department's own Refugee Bureau that Israel was preventing humanitarian aid from reaching the Gazans, which would be in violation of U.S. law, which would then subject Israel to sanctions, including the suspension of weapons shipments. Anthony Blinken actually flat out lied in front of Congress. And although he is facing a contempt charge on the Afghanistan withdrawal, he seems to be skirting through this. But the ultimate schmuckery, I thought, was the deputy mayor of Jerusalem, Fleur Hassan Nahum, who on the Piers Morgan show asked, where are all the Palestinian Mandelas in Gaza? To which Aaron Mate, the son of Gabor Mate, replied, well, tens of thousands of them peacefully protested Israel's siege and ethnic cleansing of Gaza back in 2018 in the Great March of Return. And the IDF then opened fire and killed 200 of them and wounded thousands more, to which her rebuttal was, well, they were all Hamas terrorists. So,
convenient.
Yeah, so, I kind of miss the old days when Teddy Kollek was mayor of Jerusalem and was a pretty ecumenical kind of guy walking around. But yeah, Fleur Hassan Nahum, who sounds like a J.K. Rowling character, you're one of the three schmucks of the week that I've got. Well, listen, thank you all for being on yet another great and robust show. And I hope everyone feels a little bit more cleansed after the extended schmuck segment. I know I do.
Didn't have to choose. It was great.
We didn't have to. I don't even, Alan, I don't know even what we can top this with on Festivus, but we'll try. Anyway, thank you. Thank you, Beverly Watts. Thank you, Ed Sarpolus. Thank you, Joel Sklar. Thank you, Bill Seikaly. Thank you, Barb Ingalls. Thank you, Nancy Derringer. And thank you, and with the last word always, Allan Lengel.
Drive home safely.
Have a great week and go Tigers.
Go Tigers. Go Tigers.